Give them a couple years to get it going, and that's what happens. I think when you have a changeover of staffs, then you have to define the people that you want on offense, defense, and special teams, and those are the kind of kids you recruit. And he's done a really nice job of defining who we are, who his teams are, and I think when you look at them in the Pac-12, kind of across the board, big athletic people. That's kind of the Pac-12. That's how I see it. That's how I view it. And they've got those kind of guys. You look at their offensive line. They got some big old tackles that are pretty athletic. They got big people, and that's what wins in this conference. I think big guys, length. That's the Pac-12 when you look at it as a whole, as a conference. You see most people are trying to get those because we're all recruiting the same guys. Well, there's a reason for that because we all play in this conference, right? And so that's what you got to remember. We're all recruiting the same athletes. It's just a matter of where they decide to go, and hopefully some of them will come here.
Going a little more on your run game.
Yeah.
You've been making some changes in the offensive line and rotating some people in there. Do you need a little more consistency there? And then one more thing, can you just talk about your general assessment of how you think this team will come back off a loss, just knowing what you know of these guys?
You're right. We need to have continuity with your offensive line because there's so many things they got to do together. It's one unit, but it's 5 players. As far as these guys' resilience, this is the first time I've been with them for a loss. The first 2 were wins, and I'm hoping what I saw in the fourth quarter is what we do, is we continue to compete that way. When you go on the road, you have to bring your own energy, and I told them that. I told them that all week. I said, this is not going to be one of those games. You're going to have to supply your own energy. I said, because our fan base will travel, and we had a great fan base out there. A lot of people from Arizona were in the stands, rooting us on, which was great. But you still have to have your energy. This place going up to Washington, boy, I tell you what, it's a fantastic venue to play a game in. I mean, it's going to be loud. I can remember when I first went up there as a freshman in college. Quarterback was Sonny Six Killer. I said, he got a good football name, Sonny Six Killer. And, playing those guys up there, and then the venue, and I think they've taken the track out of there, I believe, and now it's even more tight. And they've got a great fan base, so it's going to be spectacular. It's a night game again, and so these are the type of venues you want to play in with this excitement and all that stuff. And I think I'm going to be forced to go to the bubble one day this week just for crowd noise. Put us in the bubble so we can turn the music up so we can get used to the noise because it's going to be noisy for our offense. So it's one of those things that I think I'm considering because that's in the best interest of the team. It's not to get away from the weather, so I don't want anybody reporting that. It's for crowd noise and crowd noise only. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. Yes, sir.
You say you didn't get any sleep on Saturday night.
Don't, being the head ball coach.
Yeah, what's Herm Edwards' typical sleep schedule look like? Doesn't seem like you need a lot.
No, if I get 5 in a day, I'm good. When the game was over, I called my wife, and she says, you don't have to tell me. I said, She says, I know. I'll come over Sunday after we go to Mass. And they came over. I saw my family Sunday. But, you don't get a lot of sleep. You can't sleep. You're always thinking of stuff, at night. I mean, you wake up, and you just wake up and you start writing things down, and that's the life of a coach. And believe it or not, when I was working somewhere else and I wasn't coaching, I slept a little bit better, but not a whole lot, But when you're the coach, you don't sleep because you're always thinking of things. You're thinking of things to improve on. You're thinking about your players. All those things come through your mind. There's always something you can do. The work is never done as a head coach because there's always somebody you're visiting with or talking to and trying to uplift people. That's your job as a coach, whether it's the trainers, whether it's the weight coach. I'm always trying to uplift people, to make sure they're doing okay because that's my job. You want to create an atmosphere where people feel good about coming to work every day and, it's a positive day for them and we get something out of it, and for these coaches. And the players were tired yesterday. I could tell in their face. I know they're going to be tired. And the coaches were tired, but no one's going to feel sorry for you. We got to prepare to try to win us a football game this week.
Coach, how good is it for the youngsters that got that big game out of the way with Michigan State, now going up to Washington to face that zoo-like atmosphere one more
Well,
time?
it's good in this sense. I think the guys that have played against Washington, they know what to expect. The young guys don't know. They don't know. We got a lot of young guys, and they're going to have to go in there and deal with it and deal with that atmosphere. I just think it's great. I just think college atmospheres are a little bit different sometimes in pro because of all the tradition that's involved in it, and there's always a couple groups that have certain things they're going to do when the game is being played, and the bands and all that stuff is going on. It's just college football. That's what makes it so unique, and when you go to someone else's venue, there's always something you see a little bit different. But the electricity is always in the stands, and those folks they're big time fans up there with football. There's no doubt about that.
Herm, Darius Slade had been part of the rotation the first couple of weeks, but I didn't see him out there this Saturday.
Yeah, he had a thumb or a finger that was bothering him, and he just felt like he couldn't go. So hopefully he's going to be better this week because we need him. We need all hands on deck playing these guys. So hopefully he'll be available this week.
Herm, as you know, you were first in the nation through the first 2 games against the run.
Yeah.
San Diego State, that's their bread and butter. A lot of it seemed to be kind of stretch, outside the tackle box kind of runs. What did you make about that?
Well, a couple things. Some of them do. The box wasn't set correctly on us. We didn't line up correctly. Some of that is just alignment error, and that's what you dread the most. Guys don't line up, and I don't know if it was fatigue or guys just didn't trust it and wanted to make a play. And what they did a good job of really getting the ball to the second level where our safeties and corners had to tackle. If you look at the tackle list, when your corners and safeties are making the majority of the tackles, that's a bad day because that's not how it's constructed at all. They have to make some. They do a great job of bringing those receivers in, cracking the support, and asking the corner to come up there. And it's one thing for the corner to come up there. It's another thing when there's a guard pulling around trying to hit the corner. Then and we got tough guys, but they did a nice job of really putting us in that situation at times due to sometimes their scheme, due to sometimes we failing not to line up correctly in our own scheme. So it's a teaching moment. I think the guys watched the film yesterday. We got to do a better job of that this week, because you got to stop the run. I mean, it's painful to watch. And it's a hard pill to swallow, when people are running the ball on you because there's hardly anything you can do because the ball is on the ground, and unless you can cause a fumble and they got good runners, it becomes a short game and a long afternoon for you defensively while your offense sits over there and watches the clock being bled down, and that's the problem. They got us into their game where they could control the game. We couldn't score. That's why you got to score against teams like that, in my opinion. You got to get up a couple scores. So they have to abandon it and throw. That never was the case. At the end, we kind of made it a game because we took the ball away and our offense scored and we got into it. But that was the second half of that ball game, and that's why it was so important for us to score as many points as we could before halftime, in my opinion, getting the ball back in the third quarter, trying to put more points on the board, so they had to abandon the run because the clock was their friend. The clock, they weren't playing against us, they were playing against the clock. They were saying, let's just keep running the ball, make first downs. As the clock dwindles, we lose possessions. That's why you got to get it to a game where they're uncomfortable playing, and we weren't able to do that, and it's a credit to them.
Coach, the fact that Arizona State has won 10 of the last 11 meetings with Washington and upset them last year, to what extent, if any, in your opinion, does that impact the mentality of both teams entering this game?
Well, I think the team that lost obviously will use it. The team that wins, I don't know if you use it a whole lot. I think you look at the circumstances of how you won the game. That's important. And no matter how you win, you win. But a lot of factors go into that. People have the sense of history. This team has beaten that team so many times. I always go back and go, okay, well, what team was that when they beat them? I just kind of look at that. How many coaches have changed since they beat them? How many players have changed with all those wins? So wins or losses. So I get it. It's a Pac-12 game, which is important. They're not in our conference, obviously. They're in the other division. But they're a big-time football team. It's a big-time football program now, and Coach Peterson has really changed it to that, you know, to that mindset. And so you get an opponent in your conference, there's 9 games left, you win this game, all of a sudden you feel pretty good about getting your first win on the road against a Pac-12 opponent that's considered maybe the one to win that division, right? I mean, so them or Stanford, I guess, right now they'd be picking those guys, I would assume, but that's just me assuming things, and I shouldn't do that, but that's how I look at it. Okay, thank you.